What's up, y'all? What up, 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 what up? Oh, we got one person in the live already waiting. See, now that's what I like to hear and see. Let me get my poll started. Um, are you subscribed? One day I'm gonna find out if I can get this poll started before I even arrive. But in any event, thank you all for joining the channel today. Let me get my stuff all set up here so I have my notes ready to go for the live. But yeah, welcome to the channel. This is icn.dj, the Indie Creative Network. This is our podcast channel, aka me, because I run and own the Indie Creative Network. So my name is Wize. I am the ICN DJ. I'm gonna turn this light down. It's like so bright. Up, wrong way. Let's go this way. Yes. All right. Just like, yeah, more of a natural tone. My skin was just like, oof, insane. Anyway, with that being said, yes, I am Wize, the ICN DJ. Make sure you all follow me on Instagram and Twitter/X at The Real Wize. That's Wize, because I'm special like that. Now, when you see my name, people try to call me all kind of things. So I'm internationally known on the microphone as Wiz, Wizzy, and Wize. But yes, it is Wize Grisette. With that being said, today is the podcast rundown, which is essentially a time where I go through the podcasts that I think have been really making some noise this week. And honestly, today I kind of want to touch on some podcasts that, just so I like made some waves this year. And crazy enough, the two that I really want to touch on are both Club Shay Shay interviews. But before we get there, again, this is the podcast rundown. You can find anything about the Indie Creative Network or ICN.dj here on this YouTube channel, but you can also find the things on our website. And guess what that is? icn.dj. That's it. Nothing too crazy, nothing too difficult at all. But again, make sure that you all are A, subscribe to the channel, B, if you like podcasts, check out our website, icn.dj, or just listen to the content here on YouTube. We have videos, we have podcasts. I have a podcast called Behind the Mic that I'm going to be talking about today as well too. So definitely tap in. Check out the poll. The poll asks a very simple question. Are you subscribed? Yes or no? If you are subscribed, click yes. If you're not subscribed, go get subscribed and come back and click yes again. Shouting out names in the comments. So if you are here watching the video, whatever, say something. I'm going to shout you out. Starting with Joey Cox. Joey Cox says, hi. What's up, Joey? How's it going? Anyway, so yes, today is the podcast rundown. I come on live 3 times a week talking all things podcast. With the podcast rundown, essentially what I do is talk about podcasts that I think are relevant enough to talk about in a 15, 20-minute live. I got quite a few, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 podcasts I want to shout out today, including what I would consider to be the podcast of the year. So starting off with my podcast, Behind the Mic, on this episode of Behind the Mic podcast, I interviewed BKA Watts. BKA Watts, better known as Watts, is a podcaster based in the Cleveland area. Amazing podcaster on the Revolt Podcast Network, so we definitely wanted to shout him out. He talks a lot about like just his career from being like a rapper to being like a host and getting, awards for, hosting amazing events in the Cleveland area. And then boom, here he is now having not just a successful podcast called Blurs and Clips on the Revolt Podcast Network, but also supporting the needs of 23 podcasts, like 23, like the Jordan number amount of podcasts in the Cleveland area on a month-to-month basis. That is incredible. Shout out to BKA Watts. Nick Withers says something that I already know is a little gag, so I see you, Nick. But I'm smarter than that. Wize, wise, not fool. Anyway, Quana says, what's up? What's good, Quana? Welcome to the podcast rundown. Welcome to our live. Joey, you're funny. Welcome to our live. Again, simple poll down at the bottom. Are you subscribed? Yes or no? I don't want to see any no's. I should really only be seeing yeses because if you're not subscribed, go get subscribed and come right back here. Cool. So the next podcast that I want to highlight is another Revolt Podcast Network podcast, and it's called Untitled Africans. Now, this podcast, like many podcasts this week, actually talked about the United Healthcare just drama. I don't even really want to call out, the drama. I don't want to call out the person who did it. Like, I don't really want to go into any of that stuff because I feel like here in America, we have a problem with like dramatizing like terrible stories, like I understand, I really understand that, the healthcare system is trash. But like, I don't think that nobody should go out that way. But in any event, most podcasts this week kind of found a way to talk about and tie in like this murderer into regular conversations. And yeah, I just wasn't really here for it this week. But that's not to say that you shouldn't. If you like comedic podcasts that talk about, or put it like a satirical spin around like tough news, definitely check out Untitled Africans this week. That episode was funny. It was funny. Again, I don't like the topic, but I did actually laugh quite a few times. Kwana says, okay, give us the rundown. Thanks. We're definitely running into that right now. Just a Chill Guy says, hi. What's up, Just a Chill Guy? I think this is, you've probably been here before. So shout out to you. Kwana, appreciate the globes. Joey Cox also says you're probably the best person streaming. Joey, you're looking for an award today. I think you just might get it. Shout out to Joey Cox right here. Anyway, so yes, next up on the list is Blurs and Clips. Blurs and Clips, they talked about movies. Movie premieres that happened in 2024. Definitely check that episode out. And check out the podcast, Blurs and Clips. Every podcast that I've mentioned so far, you can all find on listen.revolt.tv. So this is the perfect place to find any podcast that I'm talking about today, but just any podcast in general that you think that you may like. Shout out Revolt Podcast Network. We're about to have 75 podcasts on the podcast network. We're right now at 66, which is already a big and amazing number. We're about to be at 75. So tap in with us. Cool. Next up, Money Honeys. Cool podcast based out on the West Coast. Definitely want you all to check out that podcast as well, too. Freddie, Chantel, and Devin, all just amazing women who have found a way to talk about finances in like a really cool and authentic way. So check out their latest episode. I'm pretty sure this is their last episode of the year. And most podcasts right now are all kind of like winding down per se, as it's, the end of the year. People are kind of preparing for like their holidays, whatever you celebrate, whatever you don't celebrate, the new year, the potential new year in 2 months, however you want to live your life or whatever you live it. But at this time, in America at the very least, podcasts are winding down. So the final podcast I want to highlight before I dive into who I would consider to be the podcaster of the year, I want to highlight a podcast that's actually going through a name change. And I haven't really spoken about that on the channel as much, like podcasts that do name changes, because it's kind of taboo. It's kind of taboo. But at the same time, sometimes you might need to rebrand. Your podcast at the end of the day is a product, so if you feel like you're in a space where the title that you have for your podcast is no longer serving you, definitely make that shift. So with that being said, I want to shout out Erica Nicole. She has a podcast. The podcast previously was called Behind the Silk. The podcast is now called Boss Babe Reset. So where she is in her entrepreneurial journey now, she feels like that title more so aligns with who she is. So she took that risk. Like her audience will tell her if it's hitting, for lack of a better term. Her audience will tell us if it's hidden or not. So in any event, like I said, all those podcasts that I mentioned today, you can find them all at listen.revolt.tv. So definitely make sure to check those out. Now for my podcast of the year. Now, if you're somebody who's been on this channel for the past month or so, you would see that I talked about this podcast literally probably within like my first week of going live. Um, but let me just tell you a little bit of a story. Now, for me, I do not, and say it straight, I don't like podcasts that are an hour and 30 minutes long or max. Like, I'm not even gonna lie to you. Even at this time now, sometimes when I see a podcast at 60 minutes, I'm just like cringing because it's like, could you have trimmed that down a little bit? Could that have gotten to like a 45, or you just like recording everything and just being like, yo, here you go, just like the platter of everything. Um, but with one caveat, there's a section or a niche, right, of podcasts that is specifically for celebrities, celebrity casts, as I would call them, where like someone that's already like immensely popular and already has like their own niche audience, whether it's in like sports or entertainment or whatever it is, when they get on podcasts, they do podcasts for hours. I don't even feel like calling out none of them right now, but they'll be on podcasts for 2, 3 hours, and you know who I'm talking about, and y'all know who you is. But there is one show who I give a chance this year. Very again, it is a celebrity cast, but one that I feel really kind of set the tone off right in the beginning of the year, and has just like followed up consistently throughout. And I want to shout out Club Shay Shay and Shannon Sharp for just killing it this year. Now, again, I was talking to my homeboy yesterday, and I was expressing to him that, like, we've all heard the cliche, overnight celebrity doesn't happen. It's not like an overnight thing. It's really like a 10-year journey. And when you think about someone like Shannon Sharp, who is literally a NFL Hall of Famer, who's literally on what he was on like 3 different sports networks between 2020 and 2024. Like he has like major partnerships with brands and all the things. But he had a podcast that came out in like the probably just before the pandemic, and I literally only heard about it for the first time for real in 2024. Like I may have heard about it in passing, but never thought to give it a chance. But 2024, the top of the year, that Cat Williams interview, it's like I should have known that the year was going to turn out the way it did based on the things that Kat said. And if you go back and listen to that interview, Kat said a lot of things that almost foreshadow what was going to happen this year alone. So as I think about like podcasts that really set the tone for the year 2024, when I think about podcasters who have kind of just like had the foot on the gas all year, Shannon Sharp, I gotta give it to you, bro. I gotta give it to you. Like he really did his thing. So definitely want to shout out Shannon Sharp. Definitely want to shout out Club Shay Shay. The interview, most recent interview that actually no, I watched So I watched that one. I did watch Keke Palmer's interview. I love Keke Palmer, so that's the one I was gonna talk about. But he had oh my god, I'm so mad I can't think of this girl name right. Amanda Seal. He had Amanda Seal on there. I want to say this had to be like maybe way through the year, maybe like April, May, June, somewhere around there. That Amanda Seal interview also set the internet on fire. So he had a couple of them that really, kind of set the tone. And that Amanda Seal interview, not like just like set the internet on fire, but it was a good interview as well too. I don't expect him like, we're not gonna, again, I be speaking highly on Revolt, but we're not gonna black Oprah the whole thing. Like he not doing that. But he is asking the questions that, we would want someone to ask. Like it doesn't feel like a talk show where it's like your producer is giving you, questions that, were like case studied 100,000 times. Like he's asking you some shit that he just probably scribbled down, you know. I'm gonna give him to yesterday. Say the day before the show, he wrote down like, "Yo, I actually wanted to talk." They might do a production meeting. I don't want to, shit on their production team. They probably did a production meeting, said, "Okay, cool. This is what we're gonna talk about." Boom. But he's not. Like, again, this ain't Black Oprah. This ain't Carisha Please. You know, this ain't none of that. So I really appreciate that podcast, and just in its authenticity. And again, for somebody like Shannon Sharp, who already is, well known, already is like, on TV, still having to, like, someone like me that listens to podcasts and checks out podcasts all the time, to only really like giving his podcast a chance 4 or 5 years after he took his first step in. Like, you got to give yourself some grace. The podcasters that are not celebrities got to give yourself some grace. Give yourself some grace. That's my departing words for this live. And I may go live next week. I may not. You just gotta just be tapped in. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you hit the notifications. Turn that up all the way, not just personalized. Turn it on all. Turn it on all, because we be out here. But in any event, thank you all for tuning in to another live of the podcast rundown. If you have a podcast you want me to shout out, whether it's this live, next live, 2 lives from now, all you gotta do, drop it in the comments on any of the podcast rundown videos, and I promise you, I will get to them. Again, so we're ending our poll now here. 60% of you were, of the ones that voted, were subscribed, and 40% of you were not subscribed. That tells me that 40% of you don't hear, when I don't use your ears. I said, if you are subscribed, click yes. If you're not subscribed, go subscribe and come back and click yes. In any event, Wize Grisette, the icn.dj, internationally known on the microphone as Wiz Wizzy and Wize, signing off. Catch you all on the next live.